Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Tuesday, the 25th of April. Glad to see you today. I'd like to talk a little bit today about something that Wayne and Mary, from the comments from, I think it was Sunday's video, brought up. And I wrote it down here. He actually said a couple things. So this week I'm going to talk about, Wayne, you inspired me a couple of times here. For the first thing I want to talk about, he says, sometimes we need to say nothing. I think he was referring to sort of being just sitting and praying and just being and listening and not needing or having something to say. And I think that's a piece of wisdom that more and more people should probably have. Sometimes we need to say nothing. Have you ever been in a position where you feel like you have nothing to say? You have no words of wisdom, no words of comfort, no funny joke, no nothing, and you feel like you just, like, what do I do now? Is it okay to be silent? No, it's never okay to be silent. We have to fill up the ether. We have to talk and talk and talk. Now, on Church at Home, if I just sat and silently stared at you for a little while, for 10 minutes, that probably wouldn't go over very well. I can't imagine this particular venue, this medium of communication doesn't hold itself well for silence. Although I have seen advertised quite a few times this last couple of years silent retreats or retreat days where it was done via Zoom. So you would encourage to sort of create a space that you would stay in for the day as if you're at a retreat center. Make your room comfortable, get a comfortable chair, cup of tea, anything like that. And then the group would come together and there'd be a speaker and some prayer and some time for some ideas to meditate upon. And then go off on your own for an hour or so and meditate and be quiet. And then come back and listen and probably not a lot of back and forth, but the convener or the facilitator sharing some insights or sharing some new questions, things like that. I've never tried that because I know myself well enough to know that if I tried to do that in my house, dude would want to go outside and then he'd want to be tickled and then he'd want to curl up on my lap and then I would want to curl up with him and I'd want to fall asleep. It would not work. Or I'd be tempted to turn my other computer on and do some work and just make that quick phone call or fire off that email. Silence, just being, doesn't really work for me if there's a computer in the room. I really need no technology. But sometimes, even when there is technology available, we need that time to just be. Now, I mean, I don't know about your life, but in my life, I end up in situations where silence happens a lot. Sometimes I'm at a hospital, in a hospital room, at someone's bedside, and they're sick, or they're dying, or they have just died. And, I feel like I have to fill up the room with these brilliant prayers. I need to speak all the words that need to be spoken that they can understand that God loves them and whatever's happening, they will not be abandoned. And if they're fearful of death, they need not be because God is with them, that Jesus will come and bring them to him and all of that stuff that they're useless words, I think, sometimes. Sometimes if there's other people in the room, like family members, I think that's helpful for them to bring them comfort. For the person who's actually laying there in distress or who is dying, I think sometimes, as Wayne said, sometimes we need to say nothing. The ability for us to be able to just simply be and recognize that truth is spoken volumes in silence. There are many, many times when more love and affection can be shared between two people when they say not a word. The look that passes between them, the touch of a hand. I think so, again, so often of the times I've been at someone's bedside when they've been sick or dying, and knowing that realizing that for them, just even having conversation is exhausting. I remember back last September when Rob was in the hospital and um, he was anxious and I was anxious and I just wanted to, I'm a talker, you know that. And I just wanted to analyze everything and think about it and figure out next steps and everything. And every once in a while, although he wasn't able to sleep, he was very nervous as well. I noticed that he would just sort of not pay attention in a different way that Rob doesn't pay attention when I'm just having a normal day with him. Because he's a guy, he's my husband, and he knows how to tune me out pretty well. Who doesn't, right? We all that person we love the most in life, we can tune them out the best of times. But this was a different kind of tuning out. It was like he was not just giving me permission to be silent, but almost begging me to shut up. Because when you are sick, when you are overwhelmed, even when you're not sick, but even if you've just got something on your mind and you're thinking about it, and somebody else talking takes up your energy. It's difficult to be able to concentrate on getting better, on getting rest, on thinking about that one thing that you have to think about when you've got so many things to think about, but you have to break it down into one thing at a time. When someone else is filling up the airspace, it's very difficult and it's draining, it's exhausting. And I think sometimes, especially for people who are sick, they will give us hints whether they want us to talk. But quite often, they're okay just to sit silently. I think sometimes, quite often, actually, for me in my situation, I've known that people were more comfortable with me just sitting with them. People who, weren't really touchy feely, and, when we passed the piece of church, didn't want to give me a hug, and that's okay, I'm not a hugger, things like that. But that when I would sit with them, if I touched their hand, they would hold on to it. That sense of the spoken word isn't necessary because the word, the sentiment, the relationship is being spoken through the touch of a hand, or the caress of a cheek, or the brushing back hair, or replacing a wet cloth on a forehead. That speaks more to the person's soul, I think, sometimes, than the words that we use. The words that we use that can be distracting. The same thing, I think, can be said when we're praying. If we're talking, then we're thinking about what we're going to say, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, I've been in too many situations where the person who's speaking doesn't think about what they're going to say, and the things that come out of their mouth are like, whoa, what the heck was that? Not appropriate. Things like that. But so either they're talking to because they motor mouth there, or they're talking, and as they're talking, they're thinking about what they're going to say, which isn't bad. It's not a bad thing. But it means we're not focused on the moment. There are times when that conversation is important for having those. But there are times in our lives where it's okay just to be quiet, just to sit and to listen for the presence of God, not for the voice of God. I mean, yeah, it's great to listen for the voice of God, but sometimes we need to listen for the presence of God. It's like the wind, a gentle breeze. We don't need to see it, but if we hear it, it's not like it's a spoken word. It's a sense. It's a sense. It's an emotion. It's an awareness of something, not necessarily a comprehension of something, and that's really important. Sometimes we just need to sit. We need to be. We need to listen. Sometimes we just need to be silent, whether it's with God, with our spouse, with our friends, with our children, with ourselves. Sometimes it's good to just let it all go. I'm not good at meditating, so I'm not going to give you any ideas about how to, empty your mind. And I spend more time in my meditations telling myself to empty my mind until I realize that all I've done is told myself to empty my mind and my time's up. But I do encourage you to find a place and a time and a situation in which you can just try being silent. And if your mind natters away in your head, it's okay. Give yourself permission to natter away silently. And then give yourself permission to not listen to the nattering until maybe it will disappear and you will be able to just hear the silence. Indeed, Wayne, you are right. Sometimes we need to say nothing. Sometimes we just need to be. I hope that today is a day that gives you time to simply be, to be in your own presence, to be with the people that you love, to be silent, to be in the presence of God, the divine, your higher being, whatever it is that you lean on. Lean in silence and be blessed. Have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael.